kind of muscles you have? No. Bro, what kind of patterns you have? Or is it just aesthetics?
Hello everybody, welcome back to Training Every Single Day. I started off today with a shoulder press and then moved on a little bit to doing some leg work. Now the technique of the shoulder press, now that I'm able to do it more often, I can start to work on the technique. Now, right about here is where I need to change the technique, right? Instead of using the legs to lift up, use a bit more of my hips and my back to get up into the handstand. Overall, I'm making a lot of improvement, so I'm glad that I can do the shoulder press, but I still want to get up into a clean handstand, then back into a hold, and then back down. Is the goal so that I can work on some balance, some handstand balance, with some good technique in the upper back. I'm getting out to doing a lot of movement flows. Really been enjoying my favorite movement that I've been doing is jumping, the jumping squat, forwards jumping, all kinds of jumping. I think it's a really fun way to use the lower body. It doesn't often build the most size, which for a lot of people is the main goal, but it does build a lot of tendon strength, a lot of joint strength, because you have to handle some impact and some technique, and it's a pretty functional way. Besides picking up things very heavily, jumping and running and explosively using the legs are some of the more awesome ways to move. Now I get into a little bit of hanging work. I didn't do any one-arm pull-up work today. I mainly did some dead hangs, working on stretching out the back and articulating the spine a bit, trying to really mobilize things around there. For you, hanging doesn't have to be with the feet off the ground. Just the overhead holding onto something and putting that tension through your spine really gets a lot of alignment in the spine, which is very helpful for your posture, for the health of your spine and back, and for building up some grip strength. Now I'm doing a little bit of some calf raises for hypertrophy, which just means muscle growth, and it's really important if you're trying to build muscular size that you focus on the lowering part and getting a nice stretch and building a lot of tension through a good amount of volume needed. Now the calf raises, the range of motion is very small, that however much you can flex with your ankle. It's important to make the most out of the smaller parts. So the part where your ankle is at and your leg are at a 90-degree angle, and when you're above that, when the angle gets smaller, is where I'm really trying to focus on to getting the most muscular size there. The fully extended part at the top is a little bit less important, specifically for the calves. It's still important. Every kind of joint is a little bit different. Each muscle is a little bit different for how you need to train it optimally. But overall, the general principles are you want to get an eccentric, the lowering part, be very controlled, and stretch it out as much as you can. Use a full range of motion is generally what you want to do. But each muscle is a little bit different for how you train it. And then I get into a little bit of some one-arm hangs. Now I notice that my fatigue level is getting a little bit high because I can barely hang on. My hand is slipping when I'm hanging from one arm. And normally I can hang from one arm quite easily. So that's how I know that I need a little bit more rest. These shoulder presses are taking a lot out of me when I do them. Back outside to do a variety of leg training without weights. Again, one of my favorite movements are these jump squats. Leave a like for jump squats if you want to try them out, or at least try to jump if you're still able to. Don't forget that you should always be trying to run and jump, because as you get older, there's going to be one day where you're not able to do them anymore. And it's possible that you never really have that day, but for a lot of people, there is a time where you never run or never jump ever again. Now here is a really good stretch that you should try out. It's the diagonal stretch, popularized by the movement culture, Ida Portal and all that. You do a lunge and then you try to touch the back ankle. It's a little bit more challenging with the leg straight, but you can bend the front leg to make it a little bit easier. It's very difficult for me to do it with the leg fully extended. So I can kind of easily do it with the leg bent, but fully extended is kind of outside my comfort zone. So the more I do it, the better I'll become, and eventually developing some more coordination, more balance there. And then another good body weight movement, for challenging some balance and developing some of the hamstring mobility and strength, is to do these single leg deadlifts. You want to touch the ground with one arm in different spots so that you kind of angle which way you're hinging. Now, it's important to get different angles when you hinge. A lot of people will only deadlift at the same angle with, their arms and their feet in like a box pattern, very straight on. But it's important to get out to either side so you don't get stuck into one kind of pattern and lead to some imbalances. There's no such thing as overtraining, but just too specialized of a training. So a more straight up example would be if you do a lot of push-ups, a lot of pull-ups, that trains only the frontal plane of movement, and your shoulders will get very tight from doing only those kind of movements. And the same thing goes with deadlifting or squatting. If you only squat and deadlift with your hips and your spine and your feet in the same angle, you'll really build up your musculature in your hips and in your back to be very hard and very almost brittle. Like, think of it like a pottery. Like when clay gets very hard and the pot is very set, it's on a snap if it gets out into some other patterns of movement that you're not used to. But you want to keep your body kind of loose and able to adapt to all different angles, all different levels of tension there. So you want to be doing deadlifts in front of you, to the sides, to either side. And that keeps your body from getting too over tightened in one position, getting very strong in one position, but very weak in another. So if you can deadlift like 1,000 pounds, like with the perfect, quote unquote, perfect deadlift form for strength, but then if something ever hits the same kind of muscular pattern where you need to go out, like a deadlift out to the side, like in real life kind of movement where something takes you off guard to the side, you'll have very strong muscles for that front pattern, but you'll have developed some very small muscles. And those muscles that you don't train and you don't think about, that tightness is just another word for weakness when it comes to training in the body. Those very tight and small muscles are not prepared for any kind of movement, and the muscles that you have developed are over-prepared, and that imbalance of strength in some of the more complex regions of your body, like your back is very complex, your hips are very complex, your shoulders are very complex. And if you don't have a full training from all angles, training from all mobilities, those areas of the body are very easy to have an injury in. A lot of people have a back injury because they're very good at walking straight. They're very good at not twisting. They don't twist a lot. And whenever kind of a twisting motion comes around, that's when a lot of people get injured. The back and the hips have so many different muscles that are very small, and it's very easy to not train one of them when you spend a lot of time to train very routine, very strict form, quote unquote perfect form, even though perfect form doesn't exist. But for the sake of talking, whenever you use only perfect form, you don't train. There's something you don't train. There's no exercise routine that can train every single muscle. So that's why it's important to get some variety in your training, to open up to some free movement, to a lot of chaotic movement that's random or self-directed, where you improvise some movements to try to train all angles of the body, all the joints, all the different sides. Anyways, getting on to nighttime stretching. Leave a like and a comment for nighttime stretching if you do nighttime stretching, because that's kind of the best time to do these kind of static stretches. This is not a static stretch. These are dynamic stretches where I'm trying to strengthen, and mobilize the spine and the upper body here with these squats against the wall. But when I do the splits, that's where, right here, this is some static stretches. And when you do these, right after you do them for like a couple hours, you're going to be more prone to injury because it like really stretches out your muscles, and a super stretched and overly stretched out muscle isn't really optimal for any kind of movement besides stretching and flexibility. And it's kind of best to do it at night, I think, because when you sleep, you'll wake up and you'll kind of be loosened out. You'll have a easier day to live a more vigorous day the next day. So leave a like, comment, subscribe, follow my Instagram. That's a really good way to support the channel for free. And if you want to help support the channel, leave a super like or give me a call with the Connect With Me number at the bottom. And if you want to save yourself some time in your training, book a coaching call with me via email. Send me an email. We can get some coaching set up online to help you get to your goals just a little bit faster. And after this static stretching, I got into some juggling. Juggling is very important to train the brain, train the mind, the hand-eye coordination, the mental ability to focus, to handle some pressure, some stress, to perform, and memory, because you have to remember where the balls are. Even though you can see them, once you get to juggling more and more balls, it does challenge your memory. Short-term memory, there's a lot to memory, and there's a lot more that we don't know. Short-term memory is where you can handle and working memories, actually, this is more precisely to say. The working memories where you kind of have to remember something when you're continuing to work with some kind of information. That's one of the more important kind of memories tied to intelligence, is challenging your working memory. And juggling can challenge your physical, spatial working memory. So give juggling a try. I'm even doing some examples of how to juggle with one ball to train your hand-eye coordination, peripheral vision, working memory, and a little bit of your brain. So thanks for watching. Take care of yourself and take care of others.